Okay, I'd like to call the meeting of the Maple Run Unified School District Board of Directors for February 18th, 2025 to order. It's 6:03-ish p.m. and we are in the Fairfield Center School Library. I'm going to do an agenda review first. Does anybody have any changes they need to make to the agenda? I don't believe we have any. So I'm going to deem the agenda accepted without objection. Please join me for a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Visitor section. Is John on the computer system?
Yes, he is.
Okay. John, do we have anybody that signed it online that would like to address the board?
We do have guests, but I haven't heard from anyone yet.
Okay. And there's Joanna. Okay. And do we have anybody in the room that would like to address the board?
We do, Nelda.
Okay. So this is the visitor section of our agenda. The public comment visitor section of the meeting is an opportunity for the community members to address issues of concern about policy, budget, or administrative matters, or to share ideas about how we can work together to improve our schools. We value input and respect divergent views. We ask that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes per topic and refrain from airing grievances with individual members of the school community, including respecting the privacy of the students and parents. Those who are attending remotely may type their name in full in the comment section if they wish to speak. During the meeting, the comment section might be disabled. So if you're in the room and need to speak, please, is there a microphone or are they just going to stand?
Zach just needs to come up to a table
Okay.
if there's anyone else.
Just state your name and...
Sure. I can just talk loud too. My name is Zachary Kelly. I'm a teacher at St. Albans City School. In particular, I teach instrumental music. I'm also a community member. I live in town. And I just wanted to thank the board and everybody here tonight for making an adjustment on behalf of my students that I teach, because we have a concert tomorrow night. It was not the original plan, but with the snow day last Thursday when we were supposed to have our concert, a lot of things and schedules had to be adjusted, and I appreciate you all accommodating that. It means the world to me and to my students, and so as far as collaboration goes, that is like peak collaboration right there, and I appreciate all of you. Just wanted to take the time to say that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. It was our pleasure. Hey, anyone else in the room wish to speak?
I think we're all set.
Okay. Anybody online, John, that wishes to speak?
Nope, we're all good.
Okay, so that concludes the visitor section of our agenda. The next item is the equity policy work session. It's a continuance of what we've been doing, and we have our friend Harry Frank here, and he's going to lead us through this discussion. We are predicting this is going to take about an hour or less.
Yep.
And Harry, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Thanks, Nilda. Thank you all for continuing this work. I think I'll say a few framing comments and then ask Bill and perhaps Jacoby to add. Much of what we're doing tonight is working with the actual language from the policies that we began looking at. Well, actually, I think we've looked at them in both previous sessions, but particularly last time, two weeks ago. But the goal for tonight is really to identify very specific language in those policies that resonates, or maybe I like the language, Bill, you used, that it aligns with the input that you've collected from both your conversation and other vehicles to get input from the community. So that's where we're going tonight. Bill, Jacoby, do you want to add any sort of context for what's happening, and then I can talk about the steps in the process?
I was looking over the policies earlier today, and found one or two that really resonated with myself. I think that's going to happen for each of us a little differently. But then looking at trying to identify the phrases or the pieces, so it could either be words, and I didn't say this to you and Jacoby earlier, Harry, but this came to me this afternoon. It might be structure. You might say, hey, I like the way this policy is structured. I'll give you an example. In one of the policies, it talked about implementation, and it talked about what was the administration's role and what was the board's role. I liked that when I saw that, because it really well defined that in the policy. And so that was like one thing I was going to put on, and there's worksheets here that Harry developed for us. So that was one of the things I was going to add besides wording. There was some structure that I really liked.
Yeah, great. So these worksheets, please take one. It's probably helpful to have it to look at as we're talking as well. And maybe in whatever way you want, maybe add the term structure so that that's something you're thinking about as well. Bill, I know in the past you've invited and encouraged community members to join these work groups.
Yeah.
So I assume that's, again, an invitation to people who are here.
Yeah, I would say Zachary's been here for all the meetings. He's trying to help us with the camera tonight since we have a camera person, but I think during this discussion, he could just leave the camera and come right up to a table too.
Yeah, I've always wanted to be a
Zachary,
cameraman
you
too.
could try well, he volunteered in a pinch to help us, so.
Good work. Okay, right. So just so people know, there's an invitation to come to the table and be part of this conversation.
I'm all set.
It's really kind of interesting that it's good stuff.
Okay.
Well, and maybe 5 or 10 minutes in, if you want to come sit up.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any of it.
Sure. I do want to say one or two words about me and the organization I work for in the context of this work. So, again, my name is Harry Frank, and I work for a group called Up for Learning. And the UP of Up for Learning stands for Unleashing the Power of Partnership in Learning. And that partnership for us is very specifically when young people and adults are at the table together. And what we often say to schools and districts, and for that matter, classroom teachers, to superintendents, is when you're ready to have young people at the table as real decision makers or partners in making those decisions, that's where we can be a help. And so Jacoby's here, I think the only student tonight. We have a long history of working together through the Student Voice Council and other work that Jacoby now does with us at Up for Learning. But I mention all that because that is it's an attempt to say students are an essential voice in our work as a learning community. Educators, administrators, community members. And if we don't have them at the table, we're missing a vital perspective. So that's a bit about who we are. This process that's unfolding is, I guess, the other piece. We try to bring data to our conversations so that it's not just the 12 or 15 people that show up on a given night that make a decision for a community. It's an effort to bring as many points of view to the table as possible. And you all have done a remarkable job through your listening sessions, through the work that's culminated in a strategic plan, and then as well as the previous meetings we've had as this group. So that's a little bit about who I am, how we do our work, where we are in this process. And I think both Bill and I have touched on it a little bit. The idea, I'll say this more specifically. So we've got roughly an hour to come to a place where we've collected as much input as possible on the language for the policy that you want to adopt as a district. We're not trying to actually finalize that tonight. My contribution will be to take all those notes. So that's why these are worksheets that you're going to write on. And I'll return all the original notes as well, but I will try to then take all your input and at least create an initial draft, a working draft for you so that when you come back at your next opportunity to work on this, you've got something close to a policy. You may decide you want to totally rewrite it, but at least it gives you something to focus on going forward. So that's how we'll work tonight, is each person taking time to themselves first. And we said about 15 minutes, but we'll see just what the group needs to use these worksheets, which prompt you to identify the language from the policy, structure, etc., and the places where you see those connections, those through lines, the alignment between what's in your data and what's in the language of the policy. And then once everybody's had some time to do that on their own, we'll just open it up for conversation. I think we'll have 2 work groups, because I think, with 2 tables like this, that will work well. So maybe the last thing I'll say is the reason why we structure it that way is, and I said something very similar to the group of student councils this morning. So we had a morning work session with all the student councils from the high school. And I said something like, there often are people in groups who think and speak quickly because they process sort of out loud. And there are people who need time and space to process. So this is one device for ensuring that everybody's going to have a chance to give their input in the conversation. Which is not to say that the first person who speaks might not have a great idea. But if you never get to hear from the other 3 or 4 people at the table, you've lost what could have been also another great idea. So that's a little bit of why we structure it this way and what our aim is for tonight, to try to get all the input down. That's all I want to say. Bill or Jacoby, anything else to clarify? Or does anybody else have any questions about how we're going to proceed? We'll go about 15 minutes on your own in writing, then conversation for about 20 minutes, and that'll leave us hopefully about 15 minutes to hear out from those smaller group conversations. Yeah.
Just a question, about the right-hand column on the worksheet that talked about aligning with data. We don't happen to have a point of reference of the data that we've collected. Just
well, we've had a couple things at previous meetings. I don't know if we've got paper copies tonight as well, but
Yeah, I don't know that we brought them the themes that we had in the last meeting.
yeah,
We had all those themes that were there.
yeah.
Forever.
I'm just wondering if I'm
Do you remember?
gonna be working from memory.
if the themes that I typed up,
Yeah.
I have those on my computer, so.
All right, so we could probably put it through the copier right there. Yeah.
Oh, right, so these are, thank you. So these are the materials, right?
Right, yeah.
So we do, and so let's make sure we have at least,
Yeah, so Karen's gonna go grab a couple copies. for
yeah, I think that would be great.
She's gonna take care of that.
This is it, right?
Yeah, well, that's the strategic plan, and then there was a theme, that one pager that has themes on it.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, those things. Yeah. Yeah, so you work right now for about.
Yeah, so let's launch, and I'll pull us back together in about 15 minutes, so at about 6:30 at the latest. But if I'm getting the sense that you're ready to move, I'll check in before then.
How much do you want a pen? Extra. She wants my.
Are you documenting? Did you volunteer to write notes?
No, have you seen my
That's what she
handwriting?
just
You do
did.
not want to. This is my handwriting. I have my own
Who has the
font.
nicest
You
handwriting?
know my
I
handwriting.
have good handwriting.
Okay, then great.
I literally have my own
My
font.
font is called illegible.
Yeah, like there's my font.
I filled that out and brought it to the last meeting, but it's on my counter.
That's it. I mean, you know what you wrote.
So what happened was I wasn't sure I was gonna make it to the meeting right away, so I had to resume my practice this morning. And that's the only reason I survived.
Yeah, no, I did too. I filled it out, and Bill's pretty much stole my thing, and that was the policy. It's not Montpelier.
You liked Montpelier because it had the expectations of.
Yeah, Montpelier's was nice. I like Montpelier's and
Maybe it's CVU.
I like that one.
So I'm just going to interject for a moment here and say, let's take at least some time to work on your own. If you all, it sounded like some of you maybe looked at all this stuff. If you feel like you've really all reviewed it thoroughly and you're ready to talk, that's great. I just want to make sure that everybody's had an opportunity to review things before you. Well, no, I mean,
I thought we were talking.
step one was to make sure everybody had a little bit of time to circle back to the policy documents and the notes they've taken in preparation for them talking as a group.
Yeah, Aaron hasn't come back with copies yet. Turn it into a positive. That's what I say to people a lot when they say something like this. Like, don't do that. I'm like, no, tell me what you like. That's
None
a
of
nice
it.
That's a nice educator in me.
Let's move on.
Let's move on, yeah, exactly.
I'm not mentally prepared for this.
From West South, Stowe. Well, Stowe and they have two districts, Stowe and Morrisville. They gave the example from Stowe. I can tell you it's the same for Elmore Morristown too. They have the same policy. They just copied the one.
So we're going to come to 15 minutes here in a moment. Thank you for taking the time to work this through, and I know you all had 2 weeks with this as well. So let's shift into conversation. I really want to encourage you to try that practice at the outset, which is, well, we've done it before, for each person to have a moment to sort of think out loud about whatever is foremost in their thoughts at this point, before you get into conversation about any one specific idea, that idea of getting people's ideas out on the table and then pursuing different avenues that you think are most important. And we'll take about 20 minutes for that. We'll reconvene with roughly 10 minutes to share between the two groups. Nilda, I really want to remember to have you in this conversation, so I hope you'll offer comments as we go. Okay. All right. So let's, I'll call us, again, we'll take about 20 minutes here for conversation in the small groups and then between the two groups. So.
Somebody want to start with something one thing they found? Just go around the table.
Out of all
They
the
like-
two things I really like about some of them, is
I just transcribed my notes. I've done that.
I think one of the things we can do
No, you don't have to.
And,
I'm telling you to.
I'm happy to start if someone else wants to do it.
about like
Get things
race and gender.
From the Essex one, I pulled out, there is no predictability of success or failure that corresponds with any social or cultural factor, which I think I would probably word a little differently, but in general, it's just, you can't look at a kid and tell whether they're gonna succeed or fail, and so you have to, you have to meet them with the goal of
Yeah, I had the
making
same.
sure they succeed.
I'm sorry, which policy were you saying?
Oh, I was just talking in general, but like
just in general,
still.
okay.
No, I think it's just one each. I think
Okay.
I think
I
it's
was
when I
still
get everyone.
having LU and Montclair both had a nationality personal students. I thought those were really cool.
I don't like
policies,
Essex's
because I
policy
think we
at
expect
all.
students to take burden of a lot of the policies. But it's not on them to create
It's
that
way
environment.
too
It's
long.
on us to try to move that.
It
along.
is very-
And hopefully they follow, but if we don't follow it, the kids
I
aren't
grew
following.
up in Essex and it was
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
It's
I was thinking out
very
loud.
hard for me to
I agree.
look at what they have
That stood
done.
out to me too.
And they did also
This
talk about
policy
student representation
Yeah.
too and stuff. So it wasn't that, it was only
I
the
just-
responsibility of
No,
the
but it was
adults,
like
right?
the burden was
The
laid on
burden,
us
yeah.
to
Policy.
adults, but the
Right.
I mean, I was like,
Right.
no way.
Just like, which policy was the one that
I've been
began
on
with
board
these
now for
things
almost a
being
year, and I just was like,
on?
nothing that Essex says in their equity policy respects parents,
So that's Montpelier. I
Montpelier-
liked,
respects community.
I liked it
It is
because
very much their first paragraph. I
of
read their
this,
first paragraph to my husband, and he was like, "Stop, stop! I can't
no,
take
it's
it anymore."
Winooski. Superintendent
It just-
shall not fail to take all reasonable,
Yeah,
required,
I liked,
necessary in
Champlain
reporting
Valley.
and
Union was
adjudicating and
very
tracking
short, very
incidents.
concise, to the
I think
point.
that's
You
important.
had structure that was workable, doesn't play the race card. I think for Essex, it was just very antagonistic to me. It just was like,
I would also
And
add
it was
to
just-
the
I didn't like
STIL
it at all.
policy, I
I didn't
liked
like it at all,
the
but I liked
acknowledgement of
Champlain
inequity.
Valley.
And it made me, it reminded me of when
Stoves was
Jeff
okay.
Benet came and spoke about the Abenaki culture and how that is
Kind of spinning off of that, one of the notes
somehow
that I had
separate
that
from
wasn't
St.
part
Albans
of
to
the
Swanton,
equity
but it
policy
really shouldn't be.
and
And, you know, how
that
can
I
we
had is, that I'd
potentially
like to include is
incorporate that
non-accusatory
into
language, and
this
generally just trying
policy
to encourage people to ask
and
questions without
other cultures
feeling
as
like
well.
they're going
But I
to
just,
be accused of
I liked that. And you know how we
bigotry,
have talked
even if
several
it's a
times
question
about language, right?
that,
When
that
it
seems like it
says,
should have an obvious answer, like
will not- what was
example I
the
thinking
language
of
that
is
you
someone
used
comes
that you
up and
liked?
is like, well, what does race have to do with slavery? And it's like
That they shall
seems
not
like a
fail to take.
shall not
really
fail, right? And we
something
talked
that,
about
that most people
before,
should probably
are we
know,
gonna
but
use
if they're
strive,
asking
are
in
we gonna
good
do
faith, they should be
ensure,
answered
you
in
know,
good faith
all of
without
those
being
things,
like,
but I
well,
really
you should
liked the
know
way
the answer
Stowe
to
did
that.
it, and they just talked about the Stowe
Yes.
School District Board holds
you know,
itself
the goal,
accountable for
like, I'd
building
like people
a
to
district-wide
be
commitment to equity, and I was like, oh,
eager
that's
to
what we're
ask
looking
questions
for,
and
right?
learn
Right,
rather
we're
than
looking for
afraid
accountability.
to
It's,
be
you
labeled.
know,
What I
and
liked
to me, that
along
just
those
seems
lines
in a
was
positive
about
way, too.
promoting critical
So, I like
thinking
that
regarding
language.
history. So
Which one was that in?
Yeah, I
I
agree.
didn't write
Like,
which one. I just
I
like
like the
skimmed for
term
things I
will,
liked
like
out
in
of
the
the
policy,
policies,
we
but
will do this.
yeah, it's like,
and just kind of,
and
it
it's like
shows like the
contributing
community
to
that we're
different
doing this, we're
perspectives.
gonna do
So,
it, we're
looking
committed
at
to doing
history
it.
from very
I also agree like the
and thinking about the
socioeconomic
future.
equity, and I think that's a big part of like St. Albans. You know, we have a school that is, we have, you know, two very different cultures of middle schools that are rooted in
we can't
socioeconomic
we can't
One of the
disparities.
things-
We don't have to use that one. We don't have to use that one.
apologizing for being white,
In
for
the ethics
being whatever we
policy,
are.
How do
We
you
can't
recognize and work to shift
Well,
that
we're not the
culture,
only
even
ones
in
that
the
are racist.
staff
I mean,
of
or-
the schools, you know,
What I
it's
think-
not-
We shouldn't have to apologize.
you know,
so recognizing that,
whatever
and
feeling
working
I
people
think
to
we recognize history.
bring
and the
everyone up
damage
to
that has been done to
What I
groups
think
a high
versus
standard.
study
I really defining
But
equity as
we-
like
I
what
think that
equity is,
people
what
think
it
that
isn't,
we-
and what this policy's for, what
we
isn't.
weren't
And I like setting like
Is that
clear
what you're saying?
expectations. Like
We
what Montpelier did, I liked a lot of what Montpelier did.
You learn from
Um,
history, you don't have to.
Was
just
like
constantly
expectations
be
of like here's what the admin is doing, what the
apologizing
principals
for
are
something that
doing,
you had
here's what the
nothing to do with it.
board is gonna do, here's
Or whatever
how
color
professional
you are,
learning is gonna
doesn't-
work, here's how
I
curriculum
don't
is
look
gonna
at a
work. Like
person
really
with
like here's
the color of
like
their
aligning like
skin.
this
I look
is
at
what
them with the contents of
everything's
their
gonna do. And I think
character. And
having
that's
those
what we're
clear
supposed
like
to do,
standards
right?
of like this is
And-
like
I mean,
there's
and
no
it's
hide,
like
there's nothing
apologize.
is
It's more
like
about
hiding from you. Like you know
how
kind of
you
what's
move
happening.
on.
Well,
we
So I
don't
kind
have,
of
I
like
don't
that
think we
just
have
it
to
all
pick out
happening
like every
so
negative
everyone
thing.
has
Let's
a
pick
clear
out what we like.
expectation.
Yeah.
so we can-
I think what hurts the ethics policy in terms of that is the use of the bolding to call out things that are defined later, because it changes the tone of the first paragraph, because you got bold redressing genocide and
You're the
indigenous
big
people,
boss.
systemic and
Technically not.
oppression.
That's
It's
what
there
I don't know. I think
to,
it's
so that you know that the
in,
term is defined later, but if you're just
in,
reading it on its face, it really looks like they're like
well,
really
maybe
hammering
it
those words,
wasn't in
which
ethics. They have a full
can,
procedure.
like,
aspect.
just a change in
So I
formatting
wasn't sure.
probably could
I was
have
talking about the
changed
Montpelier.
Oh,
The
yeah,
essence
okay.
one I felt was a little,
It was too lengthy.
yeah. Versus the Montpelier one was like 2 pages. And like it said like board, it said expectations for each.
Yeah, I like that.
Um,
That's what-
and that the
And-
leadership team can come up with that too.
When they came out with
And
this,
I
it was
will
a letter
just say,
from-
like, I totally echo what Jacoby is saying, and I'll say that it feels like, right, if we're talking about having
Get your
that
point in there,
information
girl.
supported by data.
She just
If you look at the roles and responsibilities that
So,
we have been taught about what the board
piggyback
is
on
not supposed to do, what a
something
superintendent
that you
does and does
said.
not do, right?
Like looking
It
at
totally
a kid
aligns with
and
all
just
of, so the language is
predetermining
accurate and
perhaps,
clear, so I
you know,
like
and so I
that.
like-
And then I started to just look at
and
the
I
language that they used, right? So
didn't write down
assessment,
where I saw
board
this, but I
education,
liked
reporting, recruitment, hiring,
not
professional development.
predetermined.
And I
Like
started to be
we
able to go over
deal
to our
with
data and
children.
look at, and so like
We don't-
reporting, that also, you know, that speaks to our family and
We're
community
not
engagement, right?
predetermined
And,
what they, where they're
and,
from, what they are,
thinking about
what race
curriculum,
they are.
we think
what-
about conflict
it's-
resolution, we think about
We take
restorative
them as they
practices, we
are.
think about a lot,
We learn
everything
about
that's on the
them.
student themes, you
And-
know, goes right with
And we learn
that,
about
so
all the kids.
all the pieces that
And
they
so I
identified.
was looking at it through-
I was
I mean,
able
I wrote down
to
different words,
find
but
where it fit in
if I just
with
picked
our
out one of the
own
ones
strategic plan and our
that I liked
goals and
is,
whatnot, so that seemed to
making sure we mentioned
meld
not
nicely.
predetermined,
You too.
you know, and,
Yeah, well, I also talked about
you know, from my prior
your policy
experience
and their
working
expectations of all of the folks. I also really liked
in
the
schools,
format of the CVU policy. I thought it was like really concise. It was
a lot of
really easy to
professional
read through.
development
It was
for
accessible
staff,
to
so they
parents
don't
and to
predetermine.
staff. That you could
A lot
just
of,
like the Essex
self-reflection,
policy, which
so
was
that
long,
when
and
I
the
was a
Newsome
principal or
policy was
whatever, I didn't
too vague
predetermine,
when I
you
was
know.
reading through it. Really liked it.
Because I came into the picture with my own biases, and you have to, you have to recognize that, so, but looking
Could I just ask the question,
through
do
the
you
lens
feel,
of
do you feel
worrying
like
about
the
kids,
average person could read
just making sure
the
we don't
CVU policy,
predetermine
because I also liked its brevity, but then I also asked
where they're
myself,
from or their
but
clothes or
does it give
whatever.
enough
One of the
information
policies
for
mentioned
the
like
average person to be able
responsibility.
to read and
I forget if it's
infer
the board or the
all of
superintendent
what,
was
because I also
continuous
thought that
improvement.
Montpelier was
Yeah.
Which I liked.
not
Ah,
as
the
good.
Stowe.
It was still,
Montpelier had that too.
you know what I mean?
I had marked down Stowe's engage in board training at least annually.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
that's
One of
not
the things
the
I liked,
Nope.
I liked from
us flying
CVU,
first.
Right.
Yes, I
Champlain
agree.
Valley School
Yeah.
District.
I was just wondering like
I
how you
like the
felt about
definition of
the
equity and
CVU one.
culturally responsive practices.
For me,
Not the
reading
way it was
policies
bulleted.
sometimes like this.
For equity, I like the
don't know
first,
that
the lead-in line that
everybody
we're
can
providing the
infer,
resources
right,
and
can take away
educational
that same
opportunities they
information
need
unless
to
you
learn.
are
Right, like that's what we're doing for students.
knowledgeable of
And then what does
educational
equity
language.
mean?
Do you know what I mean?
Those 4 bullets
25%
of
of our
all the protected classes, which is a general statement that happens all the time. But then providing for each student needs, equity doesn't mean equal, disrupting the equitable practices we see in the system. And like, if I was gonna like unpack equity into a statement, those would be my main things. Like, I was trying to just pull it out, what those longer sentences were. And then I like the idea, what does culturally responsive practices mean?
Wow.
My culture, Charlie, can I use you for a second? Charlie and I have different culture. And I'm deliberately picking it because we're white, heterosexual males, right?
Yeah.
But we have different lived experiences. So your culture is not going to be the same as my culture. I need to respect your culture. I need to learn about your culture. I need to provide learning and growth opportunities and thriving to respect your culture. And we all have different culture around this table. So it's that, I liked how that talked about by leveraging the student's lived experience.
And it's
Every student has a different lived experience.
going
No
on.
one has the same.
It's still going on. It's being called.
So that's why I like those two definitions. I
Still
thought those were
happens. And
important.
then
It's like,
even when
you know,
we
you
did
can have the
the
policy statement, but you gotta
after-school
define some
programs
things.
like the F&A circle of
Simple
and stuff,
terms.
which were great. Kids would
And
be
everyone
ridiculed for going.
Yeah, there were certain points that,
Something like, just make it
I don't know.
simple, like somewhere.
We moved here for the school
Something-
system to get out of there.
Are you gonna be taking
It was so bad.
That's my plan,
Yeah.
is to take everybody to do it.
sorry, from the Essex ones, I had marked down decolonized perspective from the Essex one with the note that it's a good point, but it's very, the area that mentioned that was very jargony, so like, I don't think I would really, I don't think it's very.
I really want to just let everyone else have an opportunity. This is stuff that I talk about with other teachers all the time. But
Just to support the simple things.
policies that
If you have to read it again slowly,
around
then
us.
maybe you can simplify.
I thought one thing that, just like a word, because I know we've talked bigger in general stuff, but just a word
Yeah,
that I
I
really
picked out one that
appreciated
was about
seeing in all of
family
these,
engagement
and
and
some
just
more
saying
than
that it's
others more
inclusive
consistently,
and it
was the
centers
word
on the needs
continuously.
and
I think this is
expectations
something that we need to recognize in our
thinking about
policy,
why
that it is not
families aren't
a work
coming
that is
and,
done because we've
might
created
have
a policy.
triggered
We
them
don't
to
go,
feel
okay, it's
comfortable
there,
in a school environment
here it is,
and adapting
push it out, and then say, great job, thanks, over.
I feel like
But
our schools are,
I think we need to
since COVID, really
maintain
missing that community.
this work.
and
It
family
needs to
push
be
in that
ongoing,
used
it
be
needs to be
there. At
perpetual,
least that's my own
because if it is
observation.
not,
Like
then
my oldest kids.
we
and
just
now
as
my
easily
youngest.
slip out of it, run into those problems that you're saying other school districts have, and that's not doing service to
I like the
Yes.
respect and champion the
Equity is an
diversity
unfinishable
and varied
race,
life
because like you can,
experiences of
like
all
the most you
community
can get to
members.
equity is like see the finish line, like you never ever cross it, because there's always
I
you know,
like
a little
the-
bit more work,
The
there's
word
always
champion.
there's always unlearning and there's always new learning that happens. And, like equity is honoring that you'll never be
And they need to be
perfect,
color
but
coded.
that strive for perfection is what equity
What is
is.
this one?
It's just learning and recognizing and
Montpelier.
And I think that's why I really liked that Stowe acknowledged the inequity, you know, because, you know, when I, to be honest, some of that will not fail, it makes us think
Actually,
that
that might have been Hartford.
there's no problem.
Yeah, I don't
Hartford's
know
number
what-
5 in
You know, like,
Hartford, right?
we're gonna make sure that we
Amanda,
keep
it doesn't have a good
and
title on it,
it's
but
not
it
a
is, this is the
realistic,
Hartford School District.
situation.
Yeah, okay.
And
So,
it's number 5.
important to just even
I have a few less problem
acknowledge
like
that
that
it's an
anything because
issue, and, and
positive language
the
like
part where,
championing
you know,
or
I love
celebrating.
the framework and how,
Because a lot of
structure of the.
Of all, not
But it
just,
also
you
shows
know,
you,
not, we're not.
you know, if I'm a
Paying
parent and I'm gonna go
marginalized,
read this
like,
policy,
because, you know,
I know who I need to talk to
if you want
about the
non-marginalized
things that I'm
people
pissed
have-
off about, right? So I like that to me creates access
And that was
also.
Montpelier.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's, I mean,
So,
That's,
I mean,
that's
that-
what I like about it, because
that- that's
as
like-
a parent,
yeah.
I mean, to navigate the school
Everybody.
system is really hard.
We wanna be
Because of my
inclusive.
parents. If I don't have
if you have
parental
something
connection,
unique about
that aspect,
yourself,
definitely,
I
that
would like to
definitely
hear it.
representation is so you can say, hey,
Whether
and even if you don't
it's
get to
celebrating a
right
certain
right,
holiday,
you can narrow it down to like 3 people to go to instead of
you know,
100
liking
people
certain
you choose to
music,
come to.
Yeah.
And it's hard to navigate
living a
the school
certain
system.
life, then
Right, but who knows what's gonna happen
we should
if things
hear
get
and
all
respect it.
restructured and then
Right,
there's
in respect
35,000
to that,
kids
you
in
know,
one
bad
district and
things
you're
that
like, who
might
do I
make
call?
you-
Ghostbusters?
It is, it's interesting.
Not called bad things, but I mean,
oh wait,
Oh, please.
challenges.
get to be put on hold for this.
I really liked what Essex said about
So quick time check, we got about 5 minutes in these conversations.
The impact of racism, because I think that we live in a
Question.
community where
I don't know how
people
to speak.
hear from
What did you
their
think of the ones that
parents.
had definitions or a glossary? You think
there's no
that was
racism.
overkill, or
Well,
did
and I was,
I kind of liked that, but there was one that I thought had too many. You know?
in our
Summer
athletic
probably
council,
needed
like
just
in athletics, there's
so
a
we're
lot of
clear on
racism,
what-
and that's where it can really
Yeah.
be like because
That's
it's like
kind of how
They
I.
have that already though,
like
in
a
our.
brother, you know, like you're able to say
We, in
racist
our
things
plan, we
out
do,
and
but I
and
think
sweep
for
it under the rug,
equity,
and like
equity
I'm
can
complicit
mean a
in
lot of
sweeping
things
things
to
under the
different
rug.
people. And that's why I was
By,
suggesting the
like everyone
definition
in
for
the
equity and
narrative sitting either
culturally
doing it or
responsive
sweeping things under
practices.
the rug, and
Because that's where the
we did a
board's saying,
reflection, and
okay,
I call it out.
this
and
is
I
our
said,
definition of
That should be
equity.
number one.
and that really
You
jarred
know,
me.
so like that,
The
and that, you know,
racism
Harvard
is not
was
like
trying
a
to do that
happy
right here with their
you're like,
policy
oh,
statement.
yeah,
You were
it's
in there,
like, you know, it's
Amanda,
supposed to
with
be
that.
like reflective
Well, actually, they had
and jarring,
definitions
and,
above, but they have more,
you know, like,
you know,
you
so
have these teams
there
that
are
all
quite a
white
few
people,
policies
but
we
just
have.
because it's all
In
white
MRUSD,
people,
we have
and especially in our
definitions
community,
after the
there's
policy statement.
a
So you have,
really,
I think you have to
like,
kind of think of
not
like,
a lot of
what's the
people, the
important word?
majority
I like,
who are present in our community.
I like the less
and
words.
it's really recognizing
I
just
think
because we have
when
these white
we,
people
when I look
in
at
our
some of the
community, doesn't
policies
mean
that
there
are
isn't
getting,
racism. It doesn't mean that,
I'm
you know,
gonna
it's
use,
okay
I'm
to
gonna use,
say
I'm
the
gonna make up
N-word
a
or
phrase
to,
here,
you know, be
equity
passive
jargon
aggressive about
words.
things or
like white
microaggressive or
privilege
just other things. It's
or,
not okay to just
I'm
go
just
out
picking
and
that one
just
out, 'cause I
do
just
things
looked at
if
it
it's
from
not
Harvard,
affecting
okay, so-
anyone.
But,
Because
you know,
it is
like,
affecting
I
it
think
because
we
you're
get too far
justifying
down that
language
road.
and, you know,
I
as a
think you were
school
asking that
system,
question,
we're trying to teach
like Essex has a
people
lot
like
of
me and
definitions
everyone's
on there,
like
they almost
Right.
have 2 pages worth
not
of
doing these
definitions.
things and like
So I think
especially
it's
in
like, pick
athletics,
the
like
words you really want to define
everyone
as a
knows it's
board,
happening, but no one
and
has
say,
including
okay,
the athletic
that
director. and
seems
things
like a
that.
big
And
word for
I'm
us
just kind of like
in this
today, kind
policy.
of reached a point where I was like,
Kind of like Amanda
I'm
said, keep it
done
simple.
with just like
Yeah.
sweeping
Simple, or else
things under the
I'm-
rug. Like it's time like we
You
If
hit
I
it
could,
right on the head with,
we're able
like
to name it.
toolkits. Like I think that's a big thing. Is like giving
There's no
like,
confusion,
because
there's
like,
no-
we're all like
I think it's
identified
important,
with
like, I was
by
looking at some of the
other people on our
definitions, I'm
team,
thinking,
so giving us
plurality,
a
I don't know
toolkit
if
of
I've
how to
ever,
respond to a microaggression.
like, I
You know,
understand
how do
what
you
it is,
respond if
whatever,
someone
but in
drops the
a
N-word,
list
what
of
is
glossary
respond
terms
in
or
that
Are we going to
definitions,
break out
that-
the
that's one
curriculum?
that
We've been talking about
may not
this
be that
stuff for
important,
years now,
you know,
and we still don't have
but it
any
might be,
curriculum.
I don't know,
Why?
but I think a
What
few
you're talking about, yeah, the burden from you guys.
definitions
to
are
the
good.
adults.
yeah, and
Because
like
Too
we get to
many
adults
is,
to help
can
create
get confusing for
overkill
people,
environment
you know.
to where
If we
one,
can, if we have to
spoke
define
out
something, I
with
think the
others,
first
or,
question
hey,
is,
I
do
heard
we
this
need that
microaggression,
word
you
in
may
there,
not
or
wanna
can we do
speak up
something
in front of
simpler?
15 other people on your team.
And
right, or
like,
you
if I
don't
wanted
want
to
to be
be
that person who
like, if I was gonna
betrays,
set an
you
arbitrary
know, yeah, the
people, I
trust.
would
Oh,
like
yeah,
a policy.
And like so instead of yeah, so like right, no one wants to be the rat, including myself. And so like how do you
like the ethics
respond in
policy
the
does
moment in a
go,
way that
like,
is like we don't do that
The
here.
definition, the
Like,
glossary list is almost as long as
and you don't have to tell anyone, but it doesn't happen yet.
Everybody
And I
looks
also like
Did you
the,
just say that? What did?
the
I'm sorry,
structure
did
Yeah.
I just
But that's where the
say that?
thing that
responsibility
you
does
mentioned
come
in the beginning.
Oh, yeah, the board, yeah,
And
that came from
that's-
Montpelier.
That's why the
Montpelier
rest
does
of it is
a
for me,
that
because,
structure is
for
really good. You got the policy, you
when
got the
our,
implementation, and then
football
who's
team did
responsible
that
for
this
which
past
pieces
fall
of
to
the
South
implementation.
They play
So you have,
Yeah.
Yes, there was
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
How do I know that we're
nothing,
doing
there
well
was
at
nothing.
this?
Right,
And then
right,
South
and
Burlington
the
has
board,
to make a
the board's
safety plan to
commitment,
come
you know, one of the
play us.
board's
Yeah.
actions
I'm
was
sorry.
we're going to get training, that was already said by
embarrassing.
someone.
Yeah, and like our motto is like
The superintendent's
I
responsible
didn't-
for
Our
reporting
standard is-
Did the
annually.
coach get them all
Measures
together
that are
and say,
developed.
we're not gonna do this?
Yeah.
Maybe on the standard,
And-
it's, you could be the
improve.
standard, and be the,
So
that's the
improvement
thing.
in
Do you wanna
PD,
be that
you know, provides
Yeah.
Goes
professional
back to-
development
and then curriculum.
Accountability, yes.
You know,
Where
And there
was
has
the
to be
big
something measurable
team meeting
that
where
we
we said,
can,
hey, we're not gonna do this,
that,
and
that
then,
we can look
in
at, because
addition, we're
otherwise
also
it's
all gonna
just
personally
words
write
that
a letter of
aren't
apology.
enforced. So we
Right.
have to,
Everyone
we have to hold
understand?
ourselves accountable, and we have to,
Like, that is an
we
action
have to hold
that
our
would
feet to the fire
prevent
and
Yeah.
make sure we're
further
coming back
incidents.
to it.
But
The adult has to be willing to
Yeah,
expend
it
the
should
social
be like
capital
a
that they
system
have with the
change
students
level, like
and
what are
say,
we doing as
that
a
is
board
wrong,
over time.
even if it
And
costs
studying the data
their
of
social
our
capital,
Yep.
it
Of
costs
It's a great
part of their relationship with those students.
students
If you aren't willing as
in our
the adult, how can
community and our
you possibly
parents and,
expect
you know,
students to do
understanding
with
It's
their
a culture,
peers?
especially
What
on a
is
team, and
all the
a
different
coach
cultures,
has
like
the
they
power
were
to
saying.
do that on a team, which
What
is
are
awesome,
they?
because whatever
You
the
know,
coach does,
and
the kids will follow.
understanding.
So you
how
know,
can
sometimes
create a
in
culture.
Schools too,
schools,
this is in.
Right, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
are
something
specifically
that
talking
really
about,
isn't
but that's where it can
here.
begin, right?
What is it? What do our kids look like?
That you have
Where are
to
they
be
from?
expected up front or-
And like, how do you frame the equity training? So, you know, our training isn't a very buzzword equity friendly area. Like, how do you disguise the equity training to
Well, I
be
would think we're
accessible
already
and to
doing
be
that, right? I
understood
hope.
by everyone? So it's not like, oh, we're going to this
Already
kumbaya
accept,
like feelings party where
For the
everyone knows
most
each
part,
other.
I
Like,
would hope.
no, we're not doing that.
I
Like,
don't
that
like-
is not what equity
I don't
is,
like
and I
getting
think
that
the
feeling.
perception
I
of
got that
equity.
feeling
Communication.
last
Yeah,
week.
like,
Respectful communication.
and
So it
the
could be-
perception of
like we're
equity
back,
is
like we're-
that, unfortunately.
I don't
And so how
think
do you
we're horrible at
create
it.
something
We're-
where
there are
we can be
individual
room for
incidents,
discussion?
though, that
There is
happen
no
at the
doubt
school
about that
regularly,
equity
just
is
like
like you're not
I
coming
guess
to
I don't know,
say
right?
kumbaya,
I
you're
don't-
coming
and I
to
don't
this
know
to
that.
hug everybody.
I
You're
would
coming
like
to this
something
to
a little strong, like
Yeah.
there was one
Yeah.
line that said we don't
Yeah, and
tolerate
I mean,
hate speech or
the point behind
Does
the
not
athletic-
tolerate
So
hate
you got
speech
about a
or acts of
minute.
harm that target
And
activity.
the
Yeah,
small
it's like, I mean, a
Right.
student I
And
know
so
at
if you're
PFA
not
heard a
walking
kid
the
call
walk,
another
right?
kid that
And you're
N-word
not
right
being
there,
a good
and the teacher was
ambassador
just
to
like,
the school.
we don't say that, and then
not,
moved on. And I was like, there should be a little
right?
more.
Like, that's your
that-
job.
Yeah,
Like,
that's not tolerated.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to be
we're
signing contracts,
definitely,
right? You're supposed to be held to
we
a certain
try,
standard.
but we're
to
definitely
be
not
able to
perfect
be
as a district.
on
I
those
mean, we've
teams that
had,
participate in that
homophobic
sport, to be able to
graffiti
get out
a
of
few
school
weeks back
early
in
or
town
go to school
school.
later, you know, like all those things, all the perks that come with it. And I just, yeah, there's
There's a lot of generations of the old boys club in St. Albans will get away with things.
and said
that's about accountability.
racial.
So
And
it's
justice
going
for
back to
education.
somebody saying, nope.
And I can tell you, last week when we had one, it was okay, so what's the education
It's
we
just,
need to
it's
provide?
woven into the fabric.
Do
I've
some
lived here
more
my
here.
Parental education.
So
We're never gonna be
let's,
perfect at it.
let's come back together as a whole group here. I do want to, Nilda, turn to you because I know it's been, I've dropped the ball on making sure you were included in the conversations in these small groups. Would you be willing to just share your thoughts, since I know you haven't been part, I know you've probably heard bits and pieces as you did last time, but I think it would be great at least to give you an opportunity to share what you are thinking at this point.
Put me on the spot.
Yeah.
You're on the, yeah, that's true. I did.
So I actually heard quite a bit of the conversation.
Great.
And I don't think I have any unique new thought. But I did like the policy that was Champlain Valley School District for many of the reasons that people that liked it for. When I went through and filled in the first column, some of the words that I put down were like accountability, commitment to equity, not predicted by characteristics, that whole every characteristic, access to high quality, meeting the needs of each and every student. Equity goes beyond formal equality. I kind of like that statement because I struggled several years ago with the difference between equity and equality. Acknowledgement and disrupting inequitable practices. I really think that should be in here. I mean, they need to be identified, and this policy does have a definition for culturally responsible practices. I guess it's one of those disrupting inequitable practices. I mean, is it one of those things where I know it when I see it, or do you have to be trained to that? And then monitoring and evaluating, I think, is important in the whole process. And then identifying achievement disparities. So those are the things I put down as, sort of words that resonated with me. And I heard some of you say some of those things also. I mean, we can make a huge long policy or a short one. I like the brevity of this one, and I think it's to the point.
Well, just as one follow-up, Aaron, I'm wondering, could you help me get Nilda's notes so that I can incorporate those? Thanks. So let's just open the floor for, I think it's fair to take another 10 minutes or so. And I think rather than seeing this as, filling each other in on the details of your conversation, maybe sort of stepping back one step and thinking big picture about, like, what are the vitals, or essentials, or whatever you want to call them? Is it a certain language? Is it certain structure? and see if we aren't, because as I listened, I think there's a very similar conversation in both places. And so I think just sort of sharing back and forth about what really rose to the top would be helpful. So let me just open it up for you all to talk as a whole group.
Well, I could go first because I went last. How's that? The other thing I like about the Champlain Valley policy is that it's broken up into segments. Like it's got definitions, and we could probably add more definitions to that are some of those key words. I like the culturally responsible practice definition, and perhaps we could have a definition of, or examples of, culturally irresponsible practices, I guess. And then the implementation is pretty, there's only, 7 bullets, but they're very powerful. And I think I like the way it's kind of segmented out this way. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks. Other thoughts?
Just echoing what Bill and then Jacoby talked about in terms of the structure of the Montpelier one. I also liked it, and I think what I liked specifically about it was that it communicated out who was responsible for what, and so that was clear, but it's also clear for a parent or community member that wants to go to a policy and sees these different participants and their responsibilities. So if you had an issue with something, you would know who would be responsible for that and who you could contact about it. So I thought from a family and community aspect in terms of access, I thought that was helpful.
I know there are a couple people over here that wanted to comment.
Oh, go ahead.
Just in terms of what I would like the policy to say, Mary Ann pointed out to me our district goal, which, it should be at the forefront of what we're doing. But overall, the thing that I would like to convey with the policy is if you're in our district, we are going to do the best to put you in a position to succeed. We're going to celebrate who you are and what makes you unique. And we are not going to let anyone, be it a student or a teacher or administrator or a board member, prejudge you based on a presumed identity.
Did you want to add?
And accountability. Accountability for everyone.
We also talked about the equity. So some of these policies are written very educator form. Like you have to know some of the words to understand what's happening, and making sure this policy is equitable in the sense that any community member or even student can read it and understand what's happening. That was one thing we talked about. This is such an important policy for everybody.
I think we had a similar conversation over here, was about taking the jargon out as much as you could. So you were talking about accessibility, we were just like clear and to the point, but don't use jargon language within it.
Because we want our community members to be able to read it without having to definition everything.
You can ask ChatGPT and Grammarly AI to remove jargon. That's kind of cool. Like you just type, I don't know. You can't do that. So you can write it with you can write it with jargon, and then you can just remove it. Because I know for me it's hard to think and not jargon. So and then you do that, and then just have remove, and then it removes it. So it's perfect. So it's like the best of both worlds. And then another thing that Nakoma brought up was the economic aspect of it, and really kind of thinking about for us equity and a large part is that socioeconomic part, and making sure that the policy addresses that. That'd be fine.
What else? Other sort of essentials that you want to make sure get named here before we finish tonight's part of the conversation?
What Zach said, what you said about the continuously.
I love that all of these policies multiple times use the word continuous or continuously in them, because I think it's important that we acknowledge that this process is not ending because we've developed a policy. it's something that is going to keep going, and we as a community are going to keep pushing it and keep developing it, and it will be this ever-changing, ever-necessary thing for our community to be responsible for these policies. Otherwise, we're accepting things that shouldn't be accepted.
I want to champion something Amanda said. That was, you specifically looked at the Hartford one and saw some of the positive language that was in there was strengths-based instead of something that was, didn't have a negative tone. You were I know you referenced that. Respect and championing the diversity and varied life experiences. I didn't write the whole thing.
Right. It's inclusive for everybody, not singling out. We're not singling out, because that's not what we're looking to do. We're not looking to single anyone out. And a lot of these things are like, feel like you're singling someone out and making somebody feel bad. Like, I don't want people to read something and feel like they're a bad person, you know? Let's keep it simple.
Yeah, other people haven't spoken on this last part, want to add? Okay, so it feels like a little act of faith for you to like give me your notes. But I will return all of this, so it's not going to disappear. But it's just going to help me obviously try to craft something that doesn't. It'll be my best attempt to capture the common themes and kind of specific items that have been named through this process.
I would take this. I have.
Oh, you have notes in here? Oh.
So just leave them on the table.
Yeah, I think what I really need is like the notes.
Oh, your notes are in here? So the notes are in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Bill, by way of wrapping up, I think it's realistic I could probably get this back to you for the end of next week.
I think we have a little bit more time. We're gonna have,
what's the
our
timeline?
next meeting is an organizational meeting, the day after town meeting. So, I don't know that we're gonna have time to deal with this. I'll have to work with Nilda on building the agenda. Looking at how our elections are set right now, everyone's running unopposed, so we should have the same board. So if we look like we have time on the 5th, we can do it on the 5th and bring, but I think that maybe I don't know what Jacoby's doing vacation, and I want to put him to work during vacation, but I'd be more than willing to meet with you next week and kind of help
I
chat
have
up.
30 minutes to an hour to spare.
That's what I thought.
Good boundaries.
Yeah, I'm putting boundaries on you.
Well, it's good for you too. I don't want you to be stuck in meetings with Harry.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll figure, but I think, I'll work with Nilda and Charlie and see if we want to bring it back. Definitely the second meeting in March, we definitely would want it back to the board. If we can get it back on the day after town meeting day, we'll go there.
Okay, all right, but we'll check in next week.
But you and I, we can check in tomorrow or the next day.
Okay.
Find the time.
My closing comment is thank you. This arena, I've often said to my colleagues at Up for Learning, why is the old white guy doing the work on equity? And we've dug in a lot as an organization, and a lot of our partners who do this work in a more focused way. One of them said, it's about everybody doing this work. It's not just about groups that get identified as marginalized or disenfranchised, and if we don't all own some responsibility in it, then actually we're undercutting the effort. So that actually helped me a lot come to conversations like this and think, okay, my contribution here is to help facilitate your conversation, but at least I can come feeling like, yeah, this is part of all of our work. So I wanted to just add that as my reflection and also my appreciation for what you've done. And I look forward to, helping move it to the next stage.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When is the deadline for people to run?
It was.
Unless they want to do it right in.
Yeah, you could still.
So know that we should be
Are you gonna do it right into Jacoby?
we're all set for that.
Ready to roll.
Yeah, I think folks are ready to roll.
Are you in town?
No, I'm in Fairfax.
All right, so moving on, the next item on the agenda is 6, consent agenda. We have minutes, media packet, a track grant award, and the board annual work plan. Does anyone need to pull anything out for discussion? Hearing none, the consent agenda is accepted without objection. Next item is reports to the board. And the first part is the student board representative report. And we have Jacoby here for that, I think. Any other student here?
No,
I don't
just
think so.
Jacoby.
Just Jacoby.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. So today the Student Voice Committee was able to be a part of a full leadership training that Up for Learning hosted with all of our leadership councils. And we are able to use our individual work time to finalize our process for recruitment. And so when we went to the faculty meeting, we got so many responses we had to close our form. We had to close the form early because we weren't going to be able to interview everyone in time. And last year, that's a really big contrast. We got like 8 people nominated from staff, and this year we had 36 people nominated from staff. So we are feeling really good about all of the people that we have nominated. We got a lot of guys, of people of the global majority, people who are LGBTQIA identifying. So we're feeling really good about kind of everyone that is going to be coming to the table to interview with us, and really kind of bring in those perspectives to the Student Voice Committee, which is great. And so for the next month, what we're going to be doing is holding interviews with everyone. We've developed a rubric that we're going to use, and it's like 1 through 4, and it's just 4 simple questions to really kind of make sure that our process is really straightforward and not biased, and just really kind of like, how did this go, how did that go, and we standardize all the questions that we're going to be asking, so everyone's going to ask the same question. And we're feeling really good about where we're headed this next month with recruitment, and we are excited to bring new people in, hopefully, to the board meeting in May and June, so that'll be nice.
Great. Any questions for Jacoby? Okay. Hearing none, we're going to move on. Item 7B is the winter student data report, and John is here to give us that report. So I'm going to turn it over to you, John.
All right. Hi, everyone.
Sorry. Gotta go under.
I'm just gonna come up here. Sit next to my friend.
You're not rid of me yet.
Come up later. So this is going to be the fastest data presentation ever because we're not changing the format we're presenting the data in, which is great. In your packet, you have all of the background information in case you want to reference it on the different data points or what different terms mean. But for tonight, I thought we would just cut to the chase. Our winter data presentation is usually a little shorter than the fall or the spring one. And so this should look pretty familiar too. This is the same format that we've been using. Actually, I'm gonna like do the whole teacher thing and come up here. So we're making comparisons from the green to the green. So from last year's winter data to this year's winter data. And so you can see attendance and behavior are pretty similar year over year, 1 year position. And in literacy and math, we've continued to make growth. So just ignore the numbers in the parentheses for now. But you can see K to 5, last year we were about 38% of children on grade level. Now we're 42. 6 to 12, we were 21% on grade level, and now we're 38, so we have a really healthy bump there. In math, our issue that I told you about in the fall with the new assessment program persists, unfortunately. They were not able to resolve the concerns that we have. And so the asterisk continues in terms of the data. So we do know, so this is data is a little out of date now, but we do know that 30 and 32% of children were on grade level. One thing that is a highlight of the new math program is a way for us to measure student growth, though, that is much more accurate than ways we've been able to do in the past, at least when we're looking at grades K through 8. So when we get to the high school, measuring student growth actually becomes really complicated. There's not a lot of programs that can do that accurately. But we, in the fall, as a group, had a conversation about talking more about student growth in addition to just the percentage of children on grade level. Because what we have been seeing in math and in literacy, as we are closing achievement gaps, the students growing the fastest are the students who are actually the ones that are furthest behind. So we're seeing good growth across all categories. But the combination of intervention services and good classroom instruction with good research-based materials are really closing those gaps pretty quickly. And so we might have students who are still in the red, right, in our neediest category, but have grown multiple years in their content knowledge in short periods of time. And so down here in the math, you can see the plus 1.44. So that is a measure from the start of this school year in September to the end of January, the average years of growth that we've seen. So in half a year, our students on average have grown 1.44 years in their content knowledge. And that is because of the incredible efforts of teachers with not just good primary instruction, but also helping students catch up and fill in foundational gaps, and for our students who are the furthest behind, the intervention services they're getting. And you can say in literacy for half a year, we're also above a year's worth of growth, which is really great. When we get up to the higher grade levels, it drops down, which is both a national and state trend, but also a reflection of kind of that inaccuracy of measuring growth at the high school grade levels in particular. So I'll pause. This is the bulk of the data, but I do have a little bit more good news, so I'll pause to see if we have any questions.
Regarding the math, the math data, if I remember correctly, when you mentioned that problem in the fall, we had like a window where if the assessment tool is not working, then we could back out of that. Is that what we're going to be doing?
Yeah, so I've submitted our notice that we're going to end the contract at the end of this year, and the math committee has a team coming together to review our alternatives.
Okay.
Yep. And just so people know, the problem that we're having with the assessment program is that for students with foundational gaps, which is most students when we're looking at math, after they answer 2 foundational questions wrong, it will stop the test. And it does not give us the option to resume it, and so we don't actually get to the point where we get to review data about how students answer questions about on grade level material. So you could be a high school student in advanced math and know all of the advanced math, but if you've made some procedural errors, or maybe you have a gap related to fractions and you got those questions earlier on in the test, you never get assessed on those higher level concepts. So it's a problem.
Do you ever, I see that you're using specific assessments, to gain this information. Do you ever look at grades, right? Just in terms of proficiency grades, like do the percentages of students who are getting a 2.5, or higher, does that?
Yep. There's broad correlation, but it's not as tight as we want it. And so particularly at the high school, this is an issue that English and math teachers have been working on. Mm-hmm. And what the teachers are discovering is really a continuation of the problem with the assessment program. So you can be proficient in a math class if you can do the grade level math correctly, but you can also still be proficient if you've made some procedural errors. And so that's the biggest source of the disconnect between the assessment data that we get and what we see for proficiencies in the classroom. But what we do see is actually a lot of alignment between our assessments that we're administering as universal screeners, so these ones, and any of the nationally normed tests. So like if students take SAT or ACT and things like that, there's a strong correlation between these and those. It's a great question. Okay.
John, what I've noticed, people when they see, grade level 32% or grade level only 38%, some people that have talked to me, are thinking that it's like testing where some kids get 98 percentile and all that. So they're confusing grade level because, and you can correct my statement, if everybody was on grade level, that really wouldn't be a good indicator. Like, what is a good score for grade level?
Yeah.
Is it 50?
So I'll say, as much as we look at these and we want to do better than this, these are better than the state averages right now. So we're one of the few districts in the state that is defying the trend of continued decline in scores. And actually, our scores, like Bill refers to as the rocket ship, right?
Yeah.
We're making growth at a pace that even our curriculum provider for literacy is trying to figure out how we're growing so fast. So it's really a huge success. But if we were just meeting today with teachers, I was just meeting today with some teachers who really, like, we had set 50% as our goal for the end of the year. To them, they really want to get to 80%. And so that's like the gold standard. If we can get to 80 or 85%,
okay,
that's when we're really, that we would be among the best in the country if we got to that point. And that's just because when you look at the standard ratios for, like, RTI has done a lot of work. People may have heard that term before, response to intervention. And so basically that between 15 to 20% of kids in a class at any one time are going to need some kind of additional help to do grade level math or grade level work.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so I did promise more good news. You may remember this from before. This used to be the page that showed the statistically significant differences between our schools.
And our historically marginalized.
That's on the next
That's
page.
on the next one, okay.
But, so historically, in this district, Fairfield was the outperformer to the positive, and City School was the outperformer to the negative. And over time, over the past 3 years, the differences have been declining, and this is actually the first time that I can share that there's no statistically significant difference in the performance between any of our schools. It's incredible.
I agree with Nilda's.
Yeah.
Yahoo is right.
It's worthy of a party. And you probably also remember at the start of the school year, we were dismayed that some of our subgroups had popped back up on this. We were really proud at the end of last year that all of our racial and ethnic groups had dropped off, and a lot of our students on plans had dropped off for the groups that had a statistically significant difference to the negative. And what we had done, or what we had shared, is in looking at that data, those groups had really suffered more learning loss over the summer, so they had popped back up for the fall. Most of those groups have fallen off now, and so now we're back with what we had previously referred to as our persistent or sticky gaps that we're really focused on and having a hard time closing, and those are our low-income students and for literacy students that are English language learners. But it's a big success to halfway through the year drop so many groups.
That's great.
So I promised quick. Those are the 3 big slides. I'm happy to answer questions if people have them, but I'm also happy to keep moving.
Is it okay to let them know about the grade level data as well that you and I talked about at all grade levels in the national?
Oh, so
you want to tell them about that?
Yeah. So you're talking about the state's change in the assessment criteria?
No, that you and I were talking about, and tell me if I'm wrong, if I interpret this wrong, John, but that every grade level in Maple Run that's tested, I don't remember if it's literacy or math, is now above the national norm for grade level.
Yeah, so that's true for
On
literacy
grade
and
level.
math. So each grade level is above state and national norms, or state and national. So we're above the 50th percentile for every grade in every school. And so that's nationally and for the state.
Great.
And if I could slap that on a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Your kid.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, John.
MRUSD has smart children.
Anyone have any additional questions for John?
Smartest kids in the Northeast.
Okay, hearing none, I think I'm hearing none. We're gonna move on, to old business. First item is the budget information. Oh, this is important information for you all. The budget information meeting is February 26th. This is a reminder. It's gonna be at 6 o'clock at the central office on Catherine Street. And for those of you that haven't heard this enough, town meeting day is March 4th. So get out there and vote. Next item is the budget presentation preview. So Bill and Brianna and, well, Bill and Brianna put together this
Aaron too.
presentation. Is that?
Aaron Rushlow as well.
Oh, and Aaron, thank you. And this is what we'll show the public when they come for the budget informational session, and if and we'll also video it so that we can put it on our webpage and everything else that we have. So, Bill, you want to whip us through the slides just so everybody has a sense of what's in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to let Brianne know, we changed this up right before the meeting. We're not gonna go through every individual slide.
Okay.
So, Brianne, Nilda and I, until about 5:25, 5:30, when Nilda texted me, we thought we'd find some time tonight and not run the whole presentation with all of you.
Perfect.
So there's a lot of these slides in here you will recognize from either budget presentations that we've done before. Erin did her magic on really making it look user-friendly. And I think she did a great job of making it much more visually accessible to everyone. So thank you, Erin, for that. The first three slides are really just about Maple Run for context for folks who don't have it, all the way through the goals. And then we have the success measures. John showed you the winter, but this is really back from the fall and actually shows some of the growth rate over the past 3 years, which I just am still astonished at how fast we're moving and progressing. So it just shows the hard work of the whole staff. And then from the next slide, which is the pre-K budget overview, Nilda, I didn't get a chance to get to you, but Bria and I thought we'd reverse the pie chart and the slide that's right after, which is really the proposed expenditure budget. It seemed like that was in the wrong order when we looked at it tonight.
Makes sense.
And that was at like 4:45. So,
Yeah.
and then after those pieces, it's a lot of information about tax rates. I skipped over a slide, but just and then how tax rates are calculated, then what are the tax rates that are being proposed with this budget, and then what's the estimated impact on the taxes for each of the three towns, and then income sensitivity. And then we're going over the ballot language. We always just show that. This year's a little easier than other years because there's just 4 articles. And then giving people where to vote, when to vote, and please vote. I did that really quick, Nelda, from what we were talking about right before the meeting.
That's good.
I don't know if I gave enough detail or if there are questions. We'd love any feedback. One of the goals this year, if you remember other years, we had a lot of data and charts. And the goal this year was to pull a bunch of that out. It's up. Erin's done a great job of putting that up on the school budget information on the website, and the QR code, we don't have a QR code on this one. We've had QR codes all over that bring people to that budget information. I actually had a reporter sent me an email today looking for something, and I said, did you look in the budget info in this presentation, look at slides 5 through 7?
Yep.
You know, so.
Okay. Bill, everybody has a copy in front of them?
Or
Is
they,
that
yeah, they either have it in their packet or
Okay.
some paper
Okay,
copies.
so this is your opportunity to make any commentary if you have any, or want to see something different.
But we, like I said, we took that approach of taking away a lot of the charts and graphs and detail numbers.
I like the approachability of it. I think it's really easy if you have 5 minutes to go through it and get it. If you want to go further, you can go further. But it's highlighted in such a way that it doesn't have to take you 30 minutes to go through, see on the chart and whatnot. I actually really think it's very appealing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
That it was a combined effort between Aaron
Yeah, you guys
Smith
did
and
a good
Aaron
job.
Bushel. They really helped make this simplified.
I love all the pictures of the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always good.
Yeah.
That's very appealing.
Okay, well, I think we haven't heard any requests for any changes, so I think we have our final draft. Thank you all.
Thanks.
I'm going to move on to old business C, Vermont Education System Reform Status and Update. So most of you were on our education session last night where Bill provided some key points and an opportunity to ask questions. But is there anything more we need to know there's a ton we need to know, but is there anything that we need to know for tonight? Any burning issues, I guess. Bill, first?
Charlie's got a question, so I'll cede it to him.
I'll let you.
Well, there's nothing new since what I told you last night in the educational session.
Okay.
I was supposed to write a piece for the board for you to adopt as a statement. I just have to apologize. I did not get my homework done, and I didn't get anything written for you. Been focused on a few other things the past little bit, but I will. I think one of the things that was said last meeting by a few of the board members here was pay attention. And you were asking questions last night, and I think that's the biggest thing right now. As I told you in the education reform piece that we're looking at, and I wish I had the title of the book. There's a book that talks about education reform in states and what is loosely titled a state takeover of education that's happened in about 30 states. This is that same play. I said that to you last night. I would say that again here in public. I believe, I want to say it that way, I believe that there's a lot of control, and there's two things that we really need to watch out for is the expansion of school choice and the rule-making authority moving from the state school board to the agency of education without a check on power of those rules. So those are my two top concern items that are in the governor's proposal. And I think those are things we got to watch out for. I believe that there are things that we can do better, and some restructuring is probably needed for Vermont. But I don't know. I'm not ready to come out and say what that is for myself, but I think there's some things we can be looking at. Charlie, you had a question?
I was going to ask about that statement, so you already covered that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just didn't get it written. I was hoping to do it today, and it wasn't in the cards.
We're calling it a resolution, right, Bill?
It's a resolution, thank you. I lost my vocabulary already.
Yep. Well, I'm here to serve. Okay.
Critique.
So,
Critique works. I like that one, Joanna.
The paper's not that far apart.
all right. Well, this is going to be ongoing, obviously, so
Yes.
I think Bill will keep us posted as the story progresses. Next item is new business. And so we have attachment 9A, which is about the upcoming organizational meeting. So after the vote for March 4th, we'll have to have a board reorganization meeting, which means we have to designate positions and roles and representatives and all that sort of stuff. And you have a form that kind of spells out everything that we have to go through to designate. And so we'll be doing that, the meeting after March 4th. And just a reminder, if you get re-elected and you're already on a post, so you will be, you have to go and get sworn in. And I think we learned last year that Aaron can do that, right?
Yes. Aaron Smith. Yep.
So rather than have to, get to a city clerk or town clerk or whatever.
Have your form.
The next item, new business B, is the FY24 audit. And you have, under attachment 9B, like to make a motion to accept the fiscal year 2024 audit, and I'm looking for a second, please, for discussion.
Second.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Brianne so she can give us the highlights.
Perfect. Okay, so I have a little presentation. It's going to be short and sweet. In your board packet, you will also have the entire basic financial statement, the MDA, which is the management letter, and the SAS 114, which is the auditor letter. Going to the next slide, this is just a summary of the audit results. Pretty much saying that we passed the audit with 0 findings. Everything looked great. So we are in great shape. Next slide, please. So this is just a recap of the FY24 budget. So on there you'll see the revenues that we expected and the expenditures that we had budgeted. And then going along is the actual that we received. So you'll see that we received $915,000 in additional revenues. With us knowing that, we spent a little bit more in the expenditures, but we then had a fund balance of $844,000, which rolled into the capital reserve fund. And then this is just a screenshot of the FY24 ending capital reserve balance. And then what the board has approved for spending for future years. So then it looks like we have an authorized available balance of about a little over $5 million in our capital reserve. That is pending what we have encumbered in case some of the things don't come out as expensive as we once budgeted for any of that. And then I think the next one is questions. Yes, Charlie?
So we have predicted as of June 30th of this year about $5 million in our capital fund, and we spent predicted this year a bit over $5 million, so we're running it very lean by necessity, but is that correct that we're kind of lean on that?
I mean, I don't think we're running lean. I think having $5 million in the capital reserve is a good amount of money.
Okay.
Having that in there, so yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions, gang? Okay, hearing none, I'm gonna take a roll vote on that motion. Amanda?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Nakuma?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Carly?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Yilda votes yes. Our camera person's making me dizzy.
Turn in
Motion
order. It's
carried unanimously. So we're going back and forth, back and
You
forth.
have a good
Nailed
job.
Nelda, I have to interrupt you because Zachary volunteered when he saw we didn't have this. That he said, I will help you out, so you wanna be gracious to him, he volunteered.
Thank you,
I'm
Zach.
totally thrilled that he's doing that. It's, you know, it's not bad to get a little buzz every once in a while, right? So- Right. Next item is under other business, and that's the warrants. And those are under attachment 10A. The administration recommends that, okay, I'm gonna make a motion to approve the warrants, acknowledging that passage of this motion will act as authorization and signature of any individual board member participating remotely. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thanks, Amanda. Any discussion related to the warrants? You all know if you have any questions on these warrants, you can call the central office and ask for Brianna, and she can help you out, hopefully.
Yes.
So sign the forms as they go around. Next item is superintendent's report.
Do we need a vote on the warrants?
Do we need a what?
A vote on the warrants?
Oh, of course we do, Charlie. Thank you. Okay, we need to vote on that. Amanda?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Yakuma?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Carly?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Nilda votes yes. The warrants are approved. Thank you all. Now, moving on to the superintendent's report, I'm going to turn it over to Bill.
Yes, so I wish I could say it's gonna be brief, but I've got a bunch of things to update the board about, so, hold on, it's gonna take a little bit. First one I wanna let you know is that our regional, advisory board for the tech center is required to have a school board member appointed to it. We haven't had that. So in the March reorganizational meeting, you will see that there will be an appointment to the RAB board. One of you will need to be sitting on that. Like Jack does that for the Collins Curley board, so we'll need one of you to take up that role. I was kind of hoping you might, because I know you have some experience in that, Nakuma. So if that's something you're interested in doing, we'll be doing that at the next meeting. On February 10th, basically a week ago, Marianne and Joanna joined us for our legislative breakfast. We hosted at the Tech Center, and we had a great discussion, a lot about the governor's plan. A few other items were on there with 7 of the Franklin County congressional representatives. And I thought it was a great day. I don't know if Joanna or Marianne wanted to add much to it, but I thought they heard a lot from the folks. There were probably about 12 or 15 audience members, and it got into a good back and forth conversation. Not in a bad way, just like exchanging ideas and comments. And I thought there was some good listening on both ends.
The next one is Monday,
The next one is this Monday,
the 23rd or whatever.
23rd, yeah.
and that's in Swanton.
It's in Swanton.
It's in Swanton, right?
24th.
24th, yes, 24th.
24th in Swanton. Okay. Do you have any thoughts?
No, I thought it was great. It was a great broad conversation, but then there were also some specific action steps that the audience, asked representatives to look into.
Yeah. If I think you're all aware, but we've had 3 snow days just since the last time we've met. Those are our first 3 snow days. Hopefully we don't have more, because then we'll be going into the 4th week in June. Not that that stops me from calling one, it's just that we're getting to that point because we'll be going up against Juneteenth in June, and then we'll be going into the 4th week. So it's been a little rough around that, and I want to thank everyone's patience. I also want to, I said it in a social media post, but I also want to thank our bus drivers and our town plow folks. They're out there doing some heavy work. I can just think of the conversation I had yesterday with 2 of our town foremen. what they thought they had changed on them in 15 minutes, even though they knew it was a big storm. So while you think it might be one way, it can change on a dime. And even though it seems like it's predicted with the weather forecast, sometimes it isn't. So I just want to thank all those folks and our maintenance staff. I know they were in Sunday and Monday cleaning, trying to get the schools accessible. And so that was one of that. This last week before break, a lot of fun activities going on in our pre-K 8 schools. Today, I believe Kelsey was twinning day, was it?
Yep.
Yeah. I caught Kelsey and Judy in that. They were twinning together. And then I walked into SATEC this afternoon and realized, where was my baseball jersey? It was sports team day. So a lot of good fun things going on in our schools. Even though this is a tough time, as you saw, we've lost a member of our community, but one of the things that we know when this happens is that the best thing we can do is stay with routines and provide supports to our students. And I want to thank City School in particular, the 7th, 8th grade team there, and the counselors, and also it showed the spirit of this district. Yesterday, around 10, we knew we needed extra people at City. By 11:30, we had almost every counselor in the district saying, I'll go to City. We didn't do that because we knew we needed people other places. But by 1 o'clock, people were in Zoom meetings working on a snow day. And it didn't stop. And some people came right to school. So it's greatly appreciated. The House, February is School Board Recognition Month in Vermont. And I want to say I want to say this differently. I want to say how much I value to work with all of you. I hear other superintendents talk about their board, and I'm grateful for the board I work with. You're all respectful. You want to challenge us, which is good. That's a good thing. But you're also very supportive. Many of you texted me yesterday and said, how can we help? Or said it through a phone call or passed it through with Nilda, like we want to do something to support the district and support City School. And just, you don't know how far that goes to help. So thank you. Just those words are. Last couple of things. On March 5th, which is our next meeting, which is the reorganization. There is some business we have to do, and Nilda and I will talk, and Charlie will talk about the equity policy piece. But back in December, you approved $3.5 million almost in construction. We need to buy, as we did with the ESSER project, we need to pre-buy some of that equipment so it's here so it can get installed. It's HVAC units. So a bid will be coming next meeting. I know you all like to have, hey, can we have some warning and look at it and then approve it at the next meeting? But we need to buy it right away so it's here before school starts, because there's a 16-week lead time on HVAC units, and that's at best. I mean, this year we thought we had a 16-week lead time would do it, but it took until September at BFA. So we don't like to have cranes around when students are around putting things on roofs. And the other thing is...
Depends on the student.
Depends.
Just kidding.
Jack.
I totally violated our equity policy.
Haven't you learned anything?
I know.
Yeah. Also on the 5th, I'm going to be attending the American Association of Superintendents conference that's happening in New Orleans. It always happens the week before town meeting usually, and I have this personal problem that I don't want to leave before town meeting day. So it's happening Wednesday through Saturday, right after town meeting, so I will be joining the board meeting remotely on that Wednesday night. So I just want to let all of you know that. And the last piece I have to say...
All go to New Orleans.
You can all go to New Orleans.
I like that idea.
Come to New Orleans, yeah. If you'd like to come to New Orleans.
The meeting after town meeting, that starts with you running.
I start, so I'll be doing what Nilda's doing tonight. I'll be doing it from there. And then we get to do a sad celebration, I think, right now. Many of you probably saw my email from earlier today. John Muldoon has accepted as superintendent position for the Mount Mansfield Unified Union School District starting July 1. And we owe him congratulations. John's been here for 4 years, and during his time, we just saw the results of not just his work, it's everyone's work, but he coordinates that. And he's done some great work in this district and has brought a lot of folks around to really trusting his guidance. And he does that in a very personable way, but also develops deep relationships with people and does it in a funny way. He's getting a lot of ribbing in our office. Brianne and I said, and Becky, the three of us cornered him today and said, "You got 3 months of this coming, buddy. So you're gonna get a lot of ribbing." So we're doing our best to give him a good send-off. I have posted today a position for an assistant superintendent. I do know some outside candidates. I don't know if there's any internal candidates. It's not that I wouldn't accept any internal candidates. I just would like you to know there is interest. One of the things someone said to me, one of our colleagues on the leadership team asked about this. They said, "So do we have a chance?" And I said, we're a really stable school district. And some of us inside our district don't see that. And I can tell you from one of the reasons I'm here is because Maple Run is a stable school district. We're not losing enrollment. We're not having to rift teachers every year because we're losing enrollment. We're not having battles over multiple issues all the time that are bringing out hundreds of community members. We have disagreements. We have to find common ground. But we are a stable, successful school district. We're seeing that academically, we're seeing it social, emotionally, and we're seeing that in how our public supports our budgets. So just remember last year we were one of 2 of Franklin County Grand Isle that passed a budget on the first try. So we have the community support, and that makes it a very desirable place. And that's why I know people have reached out to me when they heard this was happening to say, "I'm interested." And I said, "Apply." That's how we do it. We have a process here. So I invite all of you to join Bree, Becky, and myself in ribbing John for the next 3 months. He needs it. And that's our sign of love. But we wish you the best, John. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add. You don't have to.
It's been a privilege for the last 4 years to work with all of you and to do this work on behalf of the children in the Maple Run community. So I'm full of gratitude. Thank you.
Now, who gave him a good recommendation?
I wrote one of those. That's how you get rid of people. You write.
Right.
Get out of here.
All right, any other questions or any questions for Bill? Okay, hearing none, I'm gonna move to the next item, which is board announcements. Are there any board announcements, board?
I have one.
Okay, Jack?
I want to thank all of you for making the change so I could see my granddaughter's concert tomorrow night. And I know Charlie feels the same way, so thank you all for making the switch. I appreciate it. And the other thing, my daughter, who's a teacher in Delaware, she teaches science. When they have a snow day, they go back on Zoom and count it as a day in school. So, just an idea.
Yeah, unfortunately, Vermont statute will not allow that.
Oh.
I think it's fortunate I don't want to be on Zoom.
Well,
yeah, we've done that.
But do you want to go to school in June,
Well, I
Or
won't
July.
attend those 3 days anyway.
Oh.
I've already missed 13. What's another 3?
We're gonna talk about your truancy.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm excited to get it. I like to chuckle.
Yeah, okay. You're not gonna have a
I'm gonna put the
conversation.
attendance slide back.
Wait, are you?
Okay.
Do I get 2 letters?
Anyone else have board announcements?
Yeah, you should have 2 by now.
Talk to John.
Is somebody gonna say something?
No, we're making fun of Jacoby.
Oh, okay. I just have, one thing. I wanna echo our gratitude, to Bill and the leadership team and the counselors and everybody that, quickly pulled it together to come in or, work via Zoom to assist in, in a plan, to deal with today and grief counseling and whatever the other needs of the school were to be. I think everybody jumped, and that's great. And even though it's something that we don't have to do very often, we knew what to do, and I'm grateful for that. And when I say we, I mean they. And then I just also wanted to say, on a different note, that I really enjoy being your board chair. Just tuck that in your hat for a while and see if you can use that for anything in the future. No, I mean, it gives me pleasure. I feel like I can have something to do at my retirement, Then the next item is plan for board observations and reflections. So if you look at that sheet that we have with the collaborative site, the ones that we've received have been scanned in there. So at some point in the near future, perhaps the April meeting or the May meeting, we'll have to do sort of a reconciliation of that to see how we're doing with meeting the goal that we had stated that we were doing these observations to meet. So just to close the loop on that, we'll have to take care of that. So we can make sure that gets on the agenda. And agenda for future meetings, we have on here support for new staff, and we have budget. And, budgets, even though we don't know the fate of our budget yet, after we complete that budget, we'll probably have to, start right in and work really soon, first thing in the fall, on a new budget. Potential executive session, we have to meet at one. What's that?
I said, woohoo!
Breeze cheering for budget.
And
For all of us.
I stopped talking to John ever since I read that he was going to another school, so I'm not even going to say anything. And is there any other business that needs to come before the board? Hearing none, we're going to adjourn, and the time is 7:55. Thank you all.
Thank you all.